So, I suppose this is a hello to the new AEW fans. I suppose this introduction will put a little bit into perspective for you. So, there are certain AEW pay per views where the company feels even bigger after the show ends, mostly for the fact that the matches are good, but also because the landscape of the company can change in one night. And Double or Nothing 2026, 1000% felt like one of those shows. This legitimately was one of AEW's best pay per views of all time. I'm not even necessarily talking about good by AEW standards or one of their better recent shows. That was one. That was 100% one of their strongest pay-per-views, top to bottom, that they've ever produced. And the most overwhelming portion of this to me is going on Twitter immediately after the show ended and seeing so many first-time AEW viewers in real time expressing how they felt about the show, saying how different the crowd feels, saying how different the wrestling feels, and how insane the matches are, and talking about how you could hear the crowd inside the building from the train to get to the building, and seeing people talk about how this show had literally everything they've ever wanted from a promotion. And of course, those reactions remind me of myself 6 years ago, watching AEW for the first time, watching, as a matter of fact, Double or Nothing 2020 for the first time, watching the first Stadium Stampede. People discovering something new that they really enjoy is one of the most exciting parts about this sport. I'm not even gonna lie, I slightly envy people whose first AEW pay-per-view was this one. Because your introduction to this promotion being an all hits, no misses pay-per-view like this, your introduction was you started off with an all-timer. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know if that's good for you in the long run or a detriment, because then your standard's high. But yeah, I do want to talk about why this pay-per-view sat so well with so much of the audience, new and old. I'll talk a little bit about the matches and the results and how it shapes the future of AEW leading into the summer for the newer viewers. But just before I get to the matches, the crowd was on fire the entire night. 15,000 strong, sold out Louis Armstrong Stadium, New York, what? Excuse me? The atmosphere was unbelievable. The crowd was locked in the whole time. They were invested into literally everything on the card, the in-betweens, the Stadium Stampede, literally everything. There were no down points of the show because the crowd was hot the whole time. And this often happens when AEW goes to New York, and when this happens, the company feels so different. I remember Grand Slam at Arthur Ashe, when Danielson and Omega locked eyes. Everything feels big, the crowd's loud the whole time, the pacing of the show helped so much, nothing dragged, stories were progressed, wrestlers were elevated, so many titles changed hands. This show was legitimately special, at all portions. Starting off from the top, honestly, like the tag titles. Started with Adam Copeland and Christian Cage versus FTR in the I Quit match. I do like how, because of the stakes of the match, there was more than nostalgia to it. Because over the 25 years that Copeland and Christian Cage had been even adjacent to each other, they had never won a world tag team championship. So they're going for the belts, and FTR, if they won, Copeland and Christian Cage couldn't team again. They couldn't be a tag team again. So on top of Adam Copeland and Christian Cage fighting for the championships, and to not have to split up as a tag team for the rest of time, they were proving that they belong at the highest level. Which, over the course of their years, AEW has done a very good job at making veteran acts feel meaningful without making the company feel like they're relying on older talent. Because now, everything that Copeland and Christian Cage fought for, whether that was Copeland's wife getting spiked on her head by FTR, or Christian Cage's watch being stolen by Stokely, just all the entire legacy of Adam Copeland and Christian Cage, their hatred for FTR, their history together, these huge egos and personalities. Now the tag titles are connected to all of that. I would like to see what this means for FTR. I would safely assume we're going to get a rematch of some sort very soon. I assume between now and Forbidden Door. Because personally, I feel like the Young Bucks somehow go against Adam Copeland and Christian Cage at All In, or something like that in a ladder match or something. Maybe like a multi-man tag thing. But I do want to see what FTR does after this. And then right after we get an AEW World Tag Team Championship title change, we get what might end up being the most important long-term result on the entire show, with Konosuke Takeshita beating Kazuchika Okada for the AEW International Championship. This match was legitimately phenomenal. A thing I said multiple times before this match happened was, if Konosuke Takeshita has a match, the quality of his big Ospreay match, the quality of his big Kenny Omega match, with Kazuchika Okada, because I feel like Okada and Omega are just different sides of the same coin. So if you can have a good match with both of them and Ospreay, like not even a good match, like an all-timer match with all three of them, you're on their level. And he did that. Not only that, but he beat Kazuchika Okada for his championship. And obviously, Okada still feels like wrestling royalty every time he appears. So when somebody beats him clean in a major AEW environment, it changes how fans view that wrestler. Takeshita already felt like one of the best in-ring wrestlers in the world, and one of the strongest performing big match guys in AEW. But now he's in that Kenny Omega, Kazuchika Okada, Will Ospreay level. He's right on their plane. He's become someone that AEW can build eras around. And it's really important because of where AEW right now is currently sitting as a company. Because AEW feels like it's entering a shift in generations. The newer stars are becoming the main event scene. They're about to have a really young main event level scene with Takeshita and Ospreay and Swerve and Fletcher and Darby and Tekla and Athena. Like, the next era is here, and Takeshita beating Okada was one of the clearest examples of that possible. And then after Takeshita beat Okada, after not listening to Don Callis' orders, Kyle Fletcher returns and turns on Takeshita. Absolutely crazy. And it's like, does obviously going to get similar treatment to Kenny Omega in that regard. But does he then have Kyle Fletcher fill the spot? Because at this point, Fletcher seems like, do they have Fletcher or do they have Okada fill the spot? Because now Okada's coming off a loss. Fletcher's just returning. We'll see. And then, of course, we have the Owen Hart Cup matches, which lead into Forbidden Door for that shot of that AEW World Championship at All In and Wembley Stadium. The first Owen Hart Cup match we had is Will Ospreay versus Samoa Joe, with Will Ospreay defeating Samoa Joe. And not only Will Ospreay defeating Samoa Joe, but now we have a more violent, more technical, more focused Will Ospreay, due to the entire Death Rider situation surrounding him, completely changing his presentation over the last couple of weeks. Meanwhile, Samoa Joe feels like somebody trying to stop Ospreay from losing himself almost, but also trying to take him down, because he defied him, of course. But Ospreay did say he was going to win this Owen Hart Cup no matter what it takes. So it looks like we're going to see Ospreay transform into a Death Rider created weapon on the way to the top, leading into the finals, which would be a very interesting match with Swerve Strickland if that were to unfold. We got a big story coming over Ospreay and what he's becoming, and Ospreay might be a protagonist turned antagonist leading into the summer. Then we've got Swerve Strickland beating Bandido. Bandido continues to feel like one of the most naturally spectacular wrestlers in the world. And Swerve, however, is laser focused on getting back to the top of AEW and claiming all the power he can. Swerve is very dangerous, still very dangerous, whether that's a month off or on every week. He is still a very dangerous player in AEW. Both wrestlers came out of this match looking very, very, very good. Swerve standing on Bandido's shoulders and hitting a house call while standing on top of him was insane, by the way. And Bandido's Poison Rana to Swerve off of the apron, absolutely nuts. But Swerve is somebody willing to do anything to become a world champion again. And if the Owen Hart Cup eventually gives us Ospreay versus Swerve once again, that becomes one of the biggest rematches AEW can possibly put on. The women's side of the cup also had a very important night with Athena and Mina Shirakawa in the opening round, with Athena defeating Mina Shirakawa in the Owen Hart Cup, and she's remaining arguably the most complete women's wrestler in North America right now, which honestly Athena's been inevitable for a very long time. And I've seen a lot of people complaining, why isn't she on AEW television weekly? Well, she's a Ring of Honor world champion, and for a while people were complaining that the ROH champions kept showing up on AEW television with their belts, and that's when the too many belts complaints showed up. So while she dominates the Ring of Honor division as the forever champion, she'll appear on AEW occasionally. Until that's taken from her, she will be in Ring of Honor, thank you very much. But when she does show up in AEW, as she does in Ring of Honor, everything she does feels intense. She's full of confidence, full of violence, And honestly, she takes moves nearly better than anybody else. Meanwhile, Mina losing doesn't really hurt her much at all because she's already fully integrated into AEW's upper women's scene now. So, let's hope we get a continuation of her story with Toni Storm and whoever killed Toni Storm. But when it comes down to the brackets, I believe next up might be Saudi versus Sky Blue, which, if Saudi wins that match, Athena versus Saudi will feed families, let me tell you something. There was also Jon Moxley versus Kyle O'Reilly for the AEW Continental Championship with no time limit. So I will clarify, this match had no time limit because the Continental Classic matches typically have a 20-minute time limit, but they wanted to raise the stakes here. Now, did the match go over 20 minutes? No, it didn't, but the stakes were risen. It went about 18 minutes, 45 seconds, something like that. This was one of the more grounded matches on the show. It was violent, it was technical, and the style of two people trying to physically wear each other down is a style that's a very big part of AEW's identity. And because of Kyle O'Reilly's believable, grounded intensity, it makes him feel very valuable to the company, at least in this version of the company. In the fact that nothing feels exceedingly exaggerated, but it all looks painful. And every kick feels deliberate, and every submission feels like he's trying to take your leg off, whatever. And AEW seems to view him on that line between the mid and upper level performers, because they consistently trust him with matches that are designed to make championships feel serious. Especially in this feud with Jon Moxley, who, this version of him, feels completely consumed by violence. He seems to be consumed by violence in this dangerous, emotionally burned out kind of way. The one person that has made him doubt himself in the ring is Kyle O'Reilly, because he keeps making him tap out, and he just can't seem to get the upper hand on him. This time around he beat him, but him retaining the Continental Championship here reinforces his atmosphere around him with the Death Riders, which it seems that the Death Rider dogma is going to start spreading across the AEW roster, especially seeing how Ospreay is dealing with it right now. It's going to start shaping the upper card of the company again. So a lot of the biggest matches might become more grounded and technical and violent and stuff like that. But it definitely reinforced that grounded, mat-based identity of AEW heading into summer. Tekla retaining the AEW Women's World Championship against Hikaru Shida, Jamie Hayter, and Chris Statlander. Tekla, being one of the freshest acts in the company, hit the ground absolutely running. Her presentation's unique. She moves different than everyone else. She's a tiny ball of charisma, and the division feels a little bit different now with Tekla on top. Now, one complaint I did see about this match was Jamie Hayter looked a little bit dumb in the end here because of she stopped Shida from using her kendo stick against Chris Statlander and Tekla, but it's no DQ. So it made more sense for Jamie Hayter to just let her do it and then try and take over, but she stopped Shida and kind of gave Tekla the win there. But a very good match from the four of these women. I wonder who they have next up for a challenger for Tekla at this point. I wonder if they stretch it all the way out to All In after the Owen Hart Cup ends. I'm sure they'll have something for her in June and July. But I will say this is the healthiest the AEW Women's Division has ever been. After that World Championship match ended, we got the Stadium Stampede. I believe this is the fourth Stadium Stampede match to occur in AEW, which, of course, with the Elite, the Hurt Syndicate, Don Callis family, the Dogs, and the Demand, this is going to be a chaotic match. Now, of course, some may have noticed, they didn't brawl in the crowd much at all, but they did a little bit. Outside of that, they did go around the stadium. Cool little appearance with Leo Rush reuniting with Bobby Lashley in quite a fashion. We had a nice little food fight in the catering area with a cameo with Tommy Invincible, brought by Jack Perry, of course. Hope Mark Davis's eyeball is okay, as somebody fell in his eye. And then he proceeded to almost die via bus. But this match type has always been one of the more fun AEW match types, along with Anarchy in the Arena. These are separate matches, they are not the same match. But displaying the majority of AEW's faction ecosystem completely exploding all at once, underneath all the chaos, it was a big showcase of how alive the AEW universe is. Now, if you might have noticed how every single one of these factions have an interconnected story, with one rivalry bleeding into another, one faction influencing another, one alliance creating another storyline with another alliance, and it feels like AEW's world is just active and interconnected. It's very good. Very good. I don't know how they fall out with this one because of the fact that because 7 people lost that, so multiple factions lost. So multiple factions are coming into next week with a loss. So I wonder how they bleed into next week off that one. And of course, in the main event, Darby Allin versus MJF, hair versus title. MJF defeating Darby Allin in just under 25 minutes to regain the AEW World Championship. Now, I will look back fondly upon that Darby Allin world title reign, which is funny enough, in 7 title defenses, that was the only time he defended in the main event of a pay-per-view. Crazy. But MJF becoming a 3-time AEW World Champion changes the direction of AEW, because Darby, representing the chaotic end of a champion's spectrum, kinda, just belt on the line literally wherever, whenever he can, until he can't anymore, which had its own connection with the audience, because who doesn't want to see a world championship match, bro? I feel like Darby and MJF as champions embody different sides of a championship spectrum. Like, you could defend every week, or, you know, you can play your dates. like MJF's not doing all that. You might get a defense or two a month, maybe a defense a month. He's one of those champions. He won't disappear for weeks on end, that's for sure. Like, he might do eliminator matches, but maybe not. Like, he's very adamant on the people who challenge me have to earn it now. You have to earn it now. I recall the last reign he had where he was challenged by Brody King, and his first reaction was, for what? You gotta earn that shot. Beat someone important. And then his first instinct was, someone important. Good idea. I'll beat you. And then he beat him and got a title shot. Lost, but, an interesting predicament. Because just a little bit earlier on, Roosh was challenging Darby Allin for the World Championship if he beat MJF. So now, the amount of people who are chasing Max now, once again, because it was similar, we were in a similar situation last reign. You got Will Ospreay, Swerve Strickland, Andrade's coming for it. Roosh is coming for it. Darby's, of course, going to come back and try. Kyle Fletcher's going to try and come for it. All orbiting around an MJF world title reign, which the main event scene is absolutely stacked. I can say that much. So, MJF winning his championship back here felt like the beginning of the next season of AEW. they usually off on all cylinders during the summertime. And then after Darby loses his championship, Kevin Knight comes out for the save from MJF and then turns on him. He, I believe on Collision, he told Darby, don't let us down. Don't let the jet down. He's like, don't let me down. Don't let the people down. Which, it was kind of heel-coded now that I look back on it, but he really, he UFO splashed him in a stretcher. That's crazy. So I'm assuming next week he's going to explain himself on Dynamite, and potentially we'll get a short Kevin Knight and Darby Allin feud. I wonder, maybe Darby Allin will come back for the TNT belt. Or attempt. Do we see Speedball turns heel with him? Do we see Speedball Mike Bailey turns heel with him? Or if they don't agree and now they're feuding? This show, which got so many new eyeballs on it, filled out the stadium, crowd was crazy all night, all the matches were fantastic. It felt like AEW reestablishing its identity. It felt like AEW presenting their identity at the right place at the right time. The crowd, the atmosphere, the match quality. A couple of these matches were so unpredictable. I could not guess who was going to win in half of these matches. A bunch of the stories mixed together. A bunch of newer stars rising. And now over the summer we got Forbidden Door coming with the Owen Cup finals. And then, we might even have a pay-per-view in between them now. This summer could end up being one of the most important stretches in AEW history. Now, with the World Championship, I'm going to miss that Darby Allin title reign. I really am. So one, if you want to see me talk about Darby Allin's title reign, maybe, I think 5 defenses deep, you can watch this video. If the newer AEW viewers want to see how AEW made a bunch of longtime wrestling fans care about the sport again, you can watch this video right over here. As a matter of fact, to newer AEW viewers, come back here often. Come back to this channel specifically. I'll be talking about this stuff. Me. You're gonna want to hear it. Come back here. And now you know where to go. Get off of my video.